The small human town sat in the middle of a wide valley surrounded by hills and rivers. Life moved slowly there. People lived simple days. Farmers worked in the fields. Children played by the river. Elders told stories under the old tree in the square. It was a place where no one expected trouble. The town was far from the great cities. It was far from the spaceports. It was far from the eyes of the Galactic Council. For the people, this was not weakness. This was freedom. They worked hard. They lived close to the earth. They trusted each other. They felt safe. But the sky above them was never truly empty. Hidden eyes always watched. Satellites of unknown designs circled the planet. Deep space signals passed over their heads. And sometimes at night, strange lights crossed the horizon. The townsfolk whispered about it. Some said it was only meteors. Others said it was something darker. On one quiet evening, as the sun fell and the sky turned red, a boy named Liam pointed to the sky. He shouted for the others to look. There were shapes moving across the stars, not like the small traders' ships they sometimes saw. These were larger, sharper, like shadows of knives cutting the heavens. The elders looked uneasy. The farmers put down their tools. The children fell silent. The air grew heavy. One old woman whispered that these were not traders, these were hunters. In the town hall, people gathered. The leader of the town, a man named Jonas, stood before them. He was not young, but his eyes were sharp. He had seen war once, long ago, before he came to this quiet place. He told the people to remain calm, but inside he knew what the lights meant. By midnight, the ships were closer. They hung in the sky like black clouds. No sound, no message, only silence. And then, with sudden force, beams of light cut through the night, not to destroy, not yet, but to mark. They drew Lee. Ness on the hills. They circled the town as if claiming it. Fear spread quickly. Families held each other. Some wanted to run into the hills, but Jonas told them to stay. He said the world outside was no safer. He said they must stand together. The next morning, the ships were still there. Now lower, now clear. They were alien warships, dark metal, strange marks glowing across their hulls. They moved with perfect control. They were not here to trade, not here to speak. They were here to take. A message came. Not by voice, not by words, but by image. A giant symbol appeared in the sky. It was the mark of an empire unknown to the people of the town. But Jonas had seen it before, long ago in his years as a soldier. It was the mark of the Krenari, a race known for cruelty, known for conquest. Jonas felt his chest tighten. He had hoped to never see that mark again. He looked at his people, farmers, teachers, children. They had no armies. No shields, no ships. But the Krenari did not care. They came to erase. They came to wipe away. The Krenari voice finally came through the machines. It was cold. It was sharp. It said, "This town does not exist anymore. Leave now or be erased." Silence fell over the hall. People looked at Jonas. They wanted an answer. His mind raced. He thought of his past. He thought of the wars he had walked away from. He thought of why he had come to this place, and then he spoke. "This is our home," he said. "We will not leave." Gasps filled the room. Some shouted that they had no weapons, some cried that they had children, some begged him to change his mind, but others stood straighter, others clenched their fists. The Krenari did not wait for more. A single beam of fire fell from the sky. It struck the outer fields, crops burned, soil cracked, smoke rose high. It was only a warning, but it was enough to tell the town what would come. Jonas walked out into the smoke. He stood with his old soldier's stance, his eyes searching the horizon. He knew the Krenari believed this place was weak. They believed humans were easy to erase. But he also knew something the aliens did not. This town had more than soil and stone. It had will, it had memory, it had people who would not bend. As night fell again, Jonas went to the edge of town, to a place few remembered, hidden under roots and rocks. There was an old door of metal, rusted but strong. He touched it with his hand, his heart heavy but steady. Behind that door, deep under the valley, there were secrets from the old wars, secrets he had once sworn never to use again. But now, as the stars above burned with alien fire, he knew the time had come. The people did not yet know. The children still cried in their homes. The families still whispered in fear. But Jonas stood by the hidden door and whispered to himself, "If they want to erase us, Then they will learn what it means when humanity fights back. And in the shadows of the hills, the Krenari war machines began to move closer, their heavy steps shaking the ground. The quiet before the storm was over. The ground shook under the weight of alien machines. Huge walkers with metal legs marched across the hills. Their steps left deep scars in the soil. Their glowing eyes scanned every shadow. The sound of gears and engines echoed through the valley. The peaceful land was now a battlefield. The people of the town stood together in the square, their faces pale, their voices low. Fear spread like fire. Mothers held their children close. Fathers clenched their fists. Everyone looked to Jonas. He was the only one who seemed calm. He watched the enemy with eyes that had seen war before. The Krenari sent another message. This time it was a voice, sharp and cruel. It said, "Humans, leave this place or be turned to a shh. You have 1 day. After that, nothing will remain." Jonas did not answer at once. He knew fear was heavy in the hearts of his people. If he spoke too soon, they might break. He walked slowly to the front. He looked at every face, young and old, and then he said, "This land is our home. We will not run. If they come for us, they will meet us standing." His words were simple, but they carried weight. Silence followed. Then one man shouted, "We have no weapons. What can we do?" Jonas paused. He did not smile, but there was fire in his eyes. He said, "We have more than weapons. We have each other, and we have something they do not know." That night, Jonas gathered a small group, strong men, brave women, even some of the older children. He led them to the hidden door under the roots and rocks. With effort they opened it. The metal screeched, dust rose, and behind it lay the forgotten bunker. Inside were old relics from a war long ago, rifles, armor, crates marked with Terran military seals. The air was thick and stale, but the power inside those walls was still alive. Glowing panels lit up when Jonas touched them. The people gasped. For the first time, hope replaced fear, Jonas explained. Before this town was built, this land was a forward post, a defense station. When the war ended, it was sealed and forgotten, but now it is ours. The weapons may be old, but they still work. The townsfolk trained through the night, their hands shaky at first, but with Jonas guiding them, they grew steady. Farmers learned to hold rifles. Teachers learned to fire pistols. Even the oldest men stood with pride. The next morning, the Krenari moved closer. They sent scouts to test the human will. Small flying drones scanned the valley. They floated low over the rooftops, recording every move. Jonas gave the order. A young boy named Liam, the same who had first seen the ships, aimed one of the old rifles at the drone. His hands trembled, but he squeezed the trigger. The shot cracked the silence, and the drone fell from the sky in sparks and fire. The people cheered. It was only a small victory, but it was proof. Proof that the Krenari could be hurt. Proof that humans were not as weak as the enemy believed, but the Krenari were not surprised for long. Within hours, they unleashed their fury. Beams of fire fell again, this time striking homes. Walls cracked, flames roared. People screamed as fire spread through the streets. Jonas and his fighters rushed to act. They used the old weapons to strike back, targeting the walkers at the edge of town. Explosions lit the valley. Smoke covered the hills. One walker stumbled and collapsed with a crash that shook the earth. The Krenari commander watched from above, his face hidden behind a mask of iron, his voice cold as he ordered, "Crush them, erase them." The fight grew fierce, but the town stood its ground. They dragged the wounded to safety. They fired from rooftops and windows. They set traps in the streets. Every man, woman, and child played a part. Still, the enemy pressed harder. More ships descended, their lights like burning suns over the valley. Jonas knew the first strike was only the beginning. He looked at the people, their faces lit by fire and determination, and he thought, they are not ready for what comes next, but they will not bow. As night fell, the flames still burned. The town was scarred, but it still lived. Jonas stood at the edge of the square, rifle in his hand, his eyes on the sky. The Krenari believed they could erase this place in one strike, but now they knew humanity would resist. The real battle had only begun. Smoke hung heavy in the valley. The air burned with the smell of fire and ash, but the town was still alive, and that alone was a wound to the Krenari pride. They had expected the humans to run. They had expected screams and surrender. Instead, they found defiance, Jonas walked through the damaged streets, his boots crunching on broken stone, his rifle slung across his back. He saw children carrying buckets of water, women bandaging wounds, old men moving debris with shaking hands. No one sat idle. Every soul fought in their own way, but Jonas knew courage alone was not enough. The Krenari would return stronger, and when they did, the old rifles would not be enough. They needed more, much more. He led his fighters back into the bunker deeper than before, through corridors sealed for decades. Rusted doors gave way to hidden rooms, and in one chamber they found what Jonas had prayed for. It was a vault filled with Terran technology, not just rifles but heavy cannons, energy packs, armor plating, and strange devices humming with faint light. Weapons from a forgotten war. The people gathered, staring in awe. Jonas spoke. "These weapons are dangerous. They were left here for a reason. But now they are our lifeline. If we do not use them, we will be erased." They trained day and night. The bunker echoed with the crack of rifles, the thud of boots, the hum of energy shields. Even the young learned to fight. Liam carried a small sidearm, his face no longer that of a boy, but of someone who had seen too much. The first test came sooner than expected. At dawn, a Krenari patrol entered the valley. 5 walkers with squads of soldiers marched toward the burned fields. They moved with the arrogance of conquerors, certain no resistance remained. Jonas gave the signal, hidden beneath the hills. Humans waited, their hearts racing. As the enemy advanced, the ground suddenly exploded. Mines crafted from old Terran charges lit the valley with fire. 2 walkers collapsed in flames, the soldiers inside screaming as metal twisted around them. Before the others could recover, the humans struck. Rifles fired from the rooftops, cannons roared from hidden pits. The valley shook with thunder. The Krenari were caught off guard, forced to retreat for the first time. Cheers filled the town, hope blazed in their hearts, but Jonas did not celebrate. He knew this victory would not go unanswered. He knew the Krenari commander would see this as an insult, and insults demanded blood. That night, the sky glowed red. Alien ships hovered low, their shadows crawling over the valley. From one descended the Krenari commander himself, tall, armored, his mask glinting in the firelight. He looked down on the humans with contempt. He raised his hand, and in an instant, massive war machines began to deploy. Not scouts, not patrols, but siege engines, heavy walkers the size of houses, their cannons glowing with deadly power. The people watched from the square, fear gripping them once again. Jonas stood firm, his voice steady. He told them, "This is the storm we feared, but storms can be broken. We will not fall." Then he turned to his fighters. He whispered, "We must strike harder than ever before. If we fail tonight, the town is lost." The battle began with fury. Beams of fire cut through homes, explosions shook the earth. The Krenari marched forward without mercy. Humans fought back with everything they had. Cannons roared, rifles cracked. The valley lit up like lightning, but still the Krenari pressed closer, their siege engines crushing walls and towers, their soldiers pouring through the streets. Humanity's line began to waver. Screams filled the night, and Jonas felt despair clawing at him. Then, from deep in the bunker, a new sound rose, a low hum, steady and powerful. A group of young fighters had unlocked a weapon sealed behind the vault. It was an ancient Terran pulse cannon, huge and glowing with forgotten energy. They dragged it to the surface, mounted it on the hill. Jonas himself aimed it at the lead siege engine. His finger hesitated for a moment, then pressed the trigger. A beam of pure energy burst forth, striking the Krenari. Machine! The explosion shook the valley. Fire erupted as the siege engine tore apart. Metal and alien flesh scattered across the ground. For the first time, the Krenari commander took a step back, his eyes narrowing behind his mask. The humans had found strength he did not expect. The people roared with triumph, their voices echoing through the burning night, but Jonas did not smile. He knew this battle was far from over. He knew the Krenari would return with even greater force, yet deep inside he also knew something had changed. Humanity was no longer only defending, they were striking back. They were showing the galaxy what it meant when humans refused to bow. The commander looked at the ruined engine, his voice like thunder. He growled, "Bring in the full army, burn them to ashes, leave nothing alive." And as his words echoed across the valley, Jonas tightened his grip on the cannon, his heart steady, his mind sharp. The war for the town had just entered a new stage, and there would be no turning back. The valley burned for 3 days. Smoke hung over the sky like a black curtain. The Krenari did not leave. They gathered more forces. Their camps spread across the hills. Their war machines dug into the ground like claws. The town was surrounded, inside the town walls. The people worked without rest. They turned houses into strongholds, schools into medical tents, fields into hidden traps. Every street became a line of defense. Jonas walked among them, giving orders, encouraging, never showing fear. Though inside his heart carried a heavy weight, the Krenari commander watched from his elevated platform, his mask shining under the firelight. He had underestimated these humans. Now he wanted to crush them with slow, merciless power. He ordered the siege to begin. First came the drones, hundreds of them, buzzing like angry insects. They scanned every corner, mapping every path. Humans shot many down, but still more filled the skies. Then came the heavy walkers, their cannons blasting holes in walls, their metal legs pounding the ground until the earth shook. They advanced step by step, forcing the humans deeper into the town. Jonas knew they could not meet the enemy head-on, so he turned to the old ways of war. Traps, sabotage, deception. Under his command, tunnels were dug beneath the streets, barrels of fuel hidden under bridges, explosives buried in the earth. When the Krenari moved in, the ground itself became the enemy. Bridges collapsed under their weight, tunnels erupted in fire, walls exploded outward with hidden charges. The valley thundered with chaos. The Krenari roared in anger. Their soldiers pushed forward, but every step cost them blood. Human snipers fired from rooftops. Arrows tipped with burning oil rained down from windows. Children carried messages through hidden paths. Every hand in the town played a role. Still the pressure grew heavier. Food supplies ran low. Water grew scarce, and the wounded filled every corner. Mothers wept quietly. Fathers clenched their teeth. Yet no one surrendered. Jonas gathered his closest fighters in the bunker. The pulse cannon hummed behind them. He spoke in a low voice. If we break, the galaxy will think humans are weak. If we stand, the galaxy will know we cannot be erased. They nodded, their faces hard with determination. They were farmers, teachers, hunters, but in this siege they had become soldiers. That night, the Krenari commander entered the battle himself, his armored figure walking at the front of the army. He carried a blade of light that cut stone like water. He raised it high, pointing toward the town square. His voice echoed through the machines. Humans, your resistance ends tonight. Jonas stood on the wall, his rifle in hand, his voice carrying across the burning valley. We are still here, and we will always be here. The battle exploded with fury. Krenari forces poured into the town. The streets became rivers of fire and smoke. The humans fought from every corner, rifles blazing, grenades flashing, their voices shouting through the night. At the old bridge, a group of villagers lured a walker across, then blew the structure apart, sending the machine crashing into the river below. At the northern gate, fighters used the pulse cannon to shatter a line of armored troops, turning them into twisted fragments. The commander pushed forward, his blade striking down every defender in his path. Nothing seemed able to stop him until Jonas himself stepped into the square. Rifle lowered, eyes locked on the alien leader. Their standoff froze the battle for a moment. Human and Krenari soldiers alike paused, watching, the air thick with smoke and silence. The commander's voice was cold. You are outmatched. Surrender and die quickly, Jonas answered. Maybe, but tonight you bleed with us. Before the words faded, explosions ripped through the southern street. Humans had detonated hidden barrels of fuel. Fire consumed the Krenari supply line. Smoke rose high. Confusion spread through their army. Jonas seized the moment, shouting for his people to strike. The humans surged forward with desperate strength. Every hand that could fight joined the charge. The valley roared with defiance, but deep inside, Jonas knew this was only a small victory. The commander had not fallen. His army still surrounded them. The siege was far from broken. Yet hope burned brighter now. As dawn broke, the town still stood. Broken walls, burned houses, blood in the streets, but still standing. The Krenari pulled back for a time, their machines regrouping. Their commander silent, Jonas looked over the ruins, his chest heavy with both sorrow and pride. He whispered to himself, they thought we were weak. They thought we were. Bald bow, now they know better. And in the hills, the Krenari commander tightened his grip on his blade, his pride wounded, his rage growing. He vowed that the next strike would end everything. The siege was only beginning, but the fire of resistance had already burned into history. The dawn came red, not with sunlight but with fire. The Krenari began their full assault. Their war machines moved in lines like iron beasts. Their cannons roared without pause. The valley shook with each strike. The town's walls cracked and the air was filled with dust and screams. The people fought with all they had. Rifles barked from rooftops. Grenades flew through broken windows. The pulse cannon blazed again and again, sending shockwaves that tore through alien armor. Yet for every enemy that fell, two more seemed to rise. Jonas stood in the square, shouting orders, his voice rough but steady. He directed fighters to weak points. He sent runners to carry messages. His eyes never left the Krenari commander, who stood on a hill, watching with cold fury. The Krenari pushed deeper. Their soldiers poured through the streets like a flood, blades flashing, guns spitting fire. Homes collapsed, flames spread from roof to roof. People screamed, but still they resisted. In the chaos, one family made a choice. A mother, father, and their teenage son, cornered by a massive alien tank. They carried fuel charges strapped to their backs. Jonas saw them run forward. He shouted for them to stop, but it was too late. The family rushed under the tank. The father lifted the son, the mother lit the charge, and in one blazing moment they vanished in fire. The explosion split the tank in half. The metal beast crashed into the street, burning. The Krenari soldiers nearby scattered in shock. The town fell silent for a heartbeat. Every human looked at the flames. Grief tore through them, but so did fury. Their screams rose louder than before. They charged again with unstoppable rage. The Krenari commander growled in anger, his pride wounded by the human sacrifice. He raised his hand, and from the ships above, new orders came. Orbital bombardment. The sky turned white. Beams of fire rained down. Entire streets melted in seconds. Stone turned to glass. The town seemed ready to vanish under the storm. People ran for cover. Jonas pulled children into the bunkers, his chest heavy, but in the depths of the bunker, an old system came alive. The Terran shield generator, forgotten for decades, flickered with weak light. Jonas and his fighters worked with frantic hands, connecting wires, slamming power cells into place. The machine roared. A dome of blue light rose over the town. The next beam struck, but instead of crushing the town, it splashed against the shield. The ground shook, but the people cheered. Hope sparked again. Jonas shouted, "The shield is weak. It cannot last forever. But now we fight. Now we strike." He turned the pulse cannon toward the skies, his hand steady, his voice hard. He fired. The beam of energy cut across the heavens. It struck one of the smaller alien warships. The explosion lit the sky like a second sun. The Krenari commander stepped forward, rage burning in his eyes behind the mask. His voice thundered, "Enough. No more warnings. No more games. Erase them." The Krenari forces surged with renewed fury. Siege engines smashed through walls. Soldiers cut through every line. The humans answered with fire and steel, but their numbers thinned. Blood filled the streets. The shield above flickered with every strike. Jonas felt the weight of loss pressing on him. He saw friends fall. He saw families broken, yet he refused to bend. He lifted his rifle, firing again and again, shouting for his people to hold the line. The battle raged deep into the night. Flames painted the Val. Red. The town became a furnace of fire and blood. But even as the Krenari pressed forward, the humans refused to break. And when the dawn threatened to rise again, both sides stood locked in ruin. The town shattered, the Krenari bleeding, neither willing to fall. The siege had turned into slaughter. But in the hearts of the humans, one truth burned brighter than the flames. No matter the cost, they would not surrender. The town was on the edge of ruin, walls broken, streets buried in ash. The shield above flickered like a candle ready to die. The Krenari pressed closer with every hour, their commander watching with cold certainty. He believed the humans could not last another day, but deep in the bunker, hope still lived. Jonas and his closest fighters searched the lowest chambers, past rusted doors and sealed gates. They reached a hall no one had entered for decades. Dust thick, air stale. But inside they found something more powerful than anything before. It was the ancient Terran pulse cannon, larger than the one they had used. This one was massive, built into the ground itself, a weapon of war designed to strike ships in orbit. Its power cells glowed faintly, like a heart still beating after centuries of silence. Jonas placed his hand on the console, his voice low. "This is our chance. If we can wake it, we can strike the sky itself." The people worked with desperate hands, reconnecting wires, moving power cells from every other system. The shield flickered weaker as energy was drained. But slowly, the cannon began to hum. Light spread through its core. The air vibrated with power. Outside, the Crenari began their final push. Siege engines crushed the last defenses. Alien troops stormed the streets. Fire spread through every corner. Jonas looked at his people and shouted, "Hold them! Just hold them a little longer!" The Crenari commander stepped forward with his army, his blade glowing, his voice cruel. "Tonight, humanity ends." The humans answered with fire. Rifles blazed. Grenade. Roared. The pulse cannon above the bunker shook the ground, its energy ready. Jonas climbed to the surface, his eyes on the sky, his voice steady. Fire! The beam shot upward like a spear of lightning. It tore through the clouds, struck the Crenari command ship. The explosion lit the heavens. The sky turned white. Fire rained down as the massive warship split apart, pieces falling like burning stars. The humans roared in triumph, their voices echoing through the valley. The Crenari forces faltered, their command broken. Chaos spread among them. Soldiers hesitated. Siege engines stumbled. For the first time, fear touched the invaders, but the commander did not fall. He stood on the hill, his blade raised, his voice shaking with rage, his pride shattered. He shouted for every Crenari to strike harder, to burn the town into nothing. The battle turned wild. The humans pushed with desperate fury. The Crenari struck back with brutal strength. The pulse cannon fired again. Another ship exploded, fire painting the sky, yet each shot weakened the bunker. Cracks split its walls, systems failed, the weapon was dying. Jonas knew they had only one chance left, one final shot. He aimed the cannon at the largest ship still in orbit, his hands steady, his eyes burning with determination. But before he could fire, the Crenari commander leapt into the square, his blade of light cutting through stone, his armor glowing with fury. The people stepped back, fear gripping them, but Jonas stood firm, his rifle ready, his voice calm. "It ends here." The commander pointed his blade at him, his voice cold. "You are only human. You cannot defeat me," Jonas answered. "Maybe, but I am not alone." The people surrounded them, wounded but unbroken, their eyes filled with fire, their voices shouting in unison, "No surrender, no retreat." The cannon hummed louder, its last charge building, Jonas' knee. The moment was near. He raised his rifle, firing at the commander. Sparks flew as the alien blocked with his blade. Their fight began in the burning square. Steel against light, rifle against blade. Every strike echoed like thunder. The people watched, holding their breath. The fate of the town balanced on every move. And above them, the cannon reached full power, light blazing, the ground trembling. Jonas saw the chance. He shouted for his people to cover him, and with their cries filling the night, he turned toward the weapon. The final shot was ready. The square burned with fire. The ground shook with thunder. Jonas faced the Crenari commander in the heart of the ruined town. One man against a towering armored warrior. His rifle cracked. Sparks burst as the alien's blade deflected the shots. The air filled with smoke and fury. The commander struck back, his blade of light cutting through stone and steel. Every swing a storm. Jonas dodged, rolled, fired again, his body heavy with wounds but his spirit unbroken. Around them, humans and Crenari clashed in brutal combat, the valley a storm of screams and fire. Above them, the great pulse cannon hummed with unbearable power, its final charge growing brighter. Cracks spread across the bunker walls. Systems screamed in warning. Jonas knew it could fire only once more. One last shot to end everything. The commander roared, his voice filled with hate. "You cannot stop us. You are weak. You are nothing," Jonas answered through clenched teeth. "Maybe I am nothing, but we are everything." The alien lunged forward, his blade slashing across Jonas's chest. Blood spilled. Jonas fell to one knee, his vision blurred, but he refused to drop his weapon. He fired point blank. The bullet smashed against the commander's armor, not piercing but forcing him back a step. The people cried out. Some tried to rush forward, but Jonas raised his hand, stopping them, his voice weak but steady. "Hold the line. This is my fight." The commander advanced again, his blade raised high. Jonas braced for the final strike, but at that moment Liam appeared, the boy who had first seen the ships. He stood with a stolen Crenari rifle, his small hands shaking, but his eyes fierce. He fired. The blast struck the commander's mask, shattering part of it. The alien staggered, his face revealed, scarred and twisted. His roar shook the air. He turned his fury toward the boy, but Jonas leapt with his last strength, tackling the commander, both crashing to the ground. The blade of light cut into the earth, sparks flying. They wrestled in the dirt, Jonas bleeding, the commander striking with savage force, but Jonas held on, his voice a growl. "You will not erase us." At that moment, the pulse cannon reached full power. Its light filled the valley, brighter than the sun. Jonas looked up at it, his choice clear. He shouted to his people, "Fire!" The cannon released its last breath. A beam of pure energy shot into the sky, striking the massive flagship above. The explosion tore the heavens apart. The ship split like glass, its pieces raining down in burning waves. The Krenari army froze, their command shattered, their will broken. The blast shook the earth. The cannon cracked and collapsed. The bunker caved in. Fire consumed the valley. Silence followed. When the smoke cleared, the Krenari were gone. Their survivors fleeing into the skies, their machines abandoned. The once proud commander lay still, his armor shattered, his blade broken. Jonas lay nearby, his chest still, his eyes half closed. The people rushed to him. Liam held his hand, tears on his face. Jonas whispered with fading breath, "Remember this. Remember that humanity never bows, never forget." His eyes closed, his hand fell. The people wept. But their voices soon rose, not in sorrow alone but in pride. They stood among the ruins, bloodied, broken, yet undefeated. The town was shattered, half in ashes, yet still alive. Children clung to their mothers, fighters leaned on each other, every survivor carried the fire of victory. They had faced an empire, and they still stood. Words spread across the stars, whispers turned into thunder. A single human town had resisted the Krenari, had destroyed their fleet, had slain their commander. The galaxy listened, some in fear, some in awe, and in the silence of the valley. As dawn finally broke through smoke, the people raised their heads to the sky, their hearts heavy but strong, their voices united in one truth. They tried to wipe out a human town, but humanity fought back, and humanity endured.